Welcome back. We are continuing our series called Thriving in Community. I believe this is episode number 4. And what we mean by thriving in community is how we as followers of Jesus grow or mature in our faith. According to a parable that Jesus told, as recorded in 3 of the 4 Gospels, it's known as the parable of the 4 soils. The seed only grows or thrives in good soil and produces a crop. Jesus is describing how his followers will be transformed to produce the fruit of the Spirit in their lives and to participate with him in his mission to restore the world. So I guess the question that we're looking at in this series is what makes up good soil? So Jim Wilder and Michael Hendricks, in their book, The Other Half of Church, which we're basing this series on, describes 4 ingredients needed for us to become the good soil that God's word can take root in. And that first ingredient that we're talking about today is joy. Sorry?
That's it. Go ahead.
Yep. Jesus said in John 15, 10 and 11, if you obey my teaching, you will live in my love. In this way, I have obeyed my Father's teaching and live in his love. I have told you these things so my joy may be in you and your joy may be full. So you might be asking the question, why is it important to have joy? And that's what we're going to explore today. What are the benefits of having the joy of Jesus and not just a little bit, but full of joy? So I think the first thing we can talk about, a benefit of having joy is better relationships.
Yeah. Well, and better relationships. And I think that adds to the thing, because I know they talk about it in the Other Half of Church, the feeling of belonging.
Yeah. And when we say joy, that's the looking people in the eye and showing them genuine happiness when you see them. Mm-hmm. When we show frequent appreciation for them, our relationships are improved. So visibly showing someone you're happy to see them gives them the feeling of joy. And this is a sign of a loving relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like, just so that we don't get caught up, this is not just, we're saying just in the relationship of a committed relationship, a marriage, things like that. Though definitely we need one of those. It is in friendship relationships. Yep. It's in parental relationships. It's just in all of those relationships.
Even work relationships.
Relationships. And all of those things really can be encompassed in this idea of better relationships.
Yeah. And then if both parties practice the same thing, then the joy gets amplified.
Yeah.
So I give you joy, you give me joy, kind of thing, and it combines and helps us to have a better relationship.
Yeah.
So some different ways we can practice this is simple as greeting someone when they come home. I know when my kids were smaller, they would run to the door and give me a big hug.
It's a wonderful feeling.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
But
unfortunately, for most of us, in my case, well past that now. My kids
I got a teenager.
Grown up and gone. Yeah.
Same.
So by the time they got to be teenagers, it was mostly our dog that was greeting me when I come in. And you know what? It still gave me joy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think even just being grateful for little things, like saying thank you for everyday things, like just acknowledging that gratefulness. Simple as having someone, make coffee, dinner,
setting
the table,
help with the dishes,
exactly, all of those
stuff
things
we would likely do every day.
Yeah,
and yet there's just that added when the other person, like, could be your friend, could be your spouse, could be your kids, could be you towards your kids, when we go the extra effort just to say thank you for doing those things, it really does increase our joy. And then lastly, it's like, I think this is a kind of a no-brainer, but just spending time together.
Sure.
Lots of times relationships, sometimes you just kind of hang out. Other times it could be a shared activity. But I mean, we've defined joy as being relational earlier in the other podcasts. So I think it makes sense then that spending time together is going to increase your joy.
Absolutely. And I think it's just a key thing, especially when we talk about, and we did just talk about community, but when we talk about spending time together, sometimes especially in friendships and marriage, all that sort of stuff, you can what really is a joyful experience for one person, or I'll say a like, maybe is a better understanding, may not be a like for, say, myself.
Yeah.
But sometimes what we do is we can still ask questions, even though it's maybe our preference. Sometimes we're just like, we tend to be like, oh yeah, well, I don't share that, so therefore I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But sometimes where the person is experiencing something they like, and you just, you may not like it yourself, but you like that they like it.
Sure.
They can express the joy of something to you, and you can feel the joy, even though you're not going to go and do the thing or watch the thing or listen to whatever it is. Just the fact that you can take that and enjoy them enjoying something.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of friendships built on where one part of the friendship's like, I don't know, likes to play tennis or something, and you play tennis with them because they like it.
Yeah, there's
may not be your favorite thing, but it's just not quite what you were saying, but along that same.
But it
idea.
is the idea of like you can really. We want to experience even their joy, even though we may not share it the same way, and all that, because it's not about what they are doing; it's about the fact that it brought them something, and they want to share it with you, and that's a wonderful.
Yeah, I really like that.
Wonderful thing.
Okay, on to the next benefit of joy, which is joy helps us endure hardship. So this is not hard to understand, but it's a little more complex. So joy gives us the strength to deal with hardship because we get better at processing emotional pain.
Yeah, I heard it written this way, and I really like it. We can feel more stable.
Yep.
When things go wrong.
Sure.
It just. And I like that I like the more stable. Yeah. Not necessarily everything's perfectly great, but you're feeling a little bit more grounded, even as things aren't going so well.
And I think what's inferred here is that just because you are living with joy or have joy doesn't mean we don't suffer or feel emotional pain.
No.
It doesn't mean that we even get past it quickly. What it means that is, in spite of the emotional pain, we can find relational joy in the midst of whatever we are going through that is causing the emotional pain.
Yeah, and it's kind of like the idea of if someone has passed away.
Yeah.
Especially if they've meant something to you, like you're going to have a big emotion, and it's going to be grief. Yeah, and we want joy-filled people still grieve when they lose someone. So it doesn't mean that like somehow you're immune to bad feelings. It really is more the idea of you processing those feelings. And so, so what can be a tendency. What happens is we isolate.
Yeah.
And this is something I talked briefly about even on Sunday when we were talking about joy in community. So we want to talk about there's a difference between a healthy alone.
Yeah.
Because there are, especially I think some introverts can be like this. Sometimes you just need that space. Nothing wrong with that. You can do that. And
I don't think it's sometimes.
Well, that's true. They can be a lot.
We need it regularly.
You can use that space, and you can take that space relationally.
Yeah.
And still be, you still in the importance of. There's even the importance of quiet. We don't talk about that a lot, but there is that importance of quiet. Even if you're an extrovert, sometimes there's the importance of just the quiet, because they talk about that. When teaching joy to an infant, there's when we talk the eye contact, there's a point where that infant will look away, and they call it quieting.
Sure.
And sometimes we do need that.
Absolutely.
It's the isolation thing, which means we're shutting off relationally.
Yeah.
That's where we need to. That's where things can be dangerous.
Yeah, and that's what we all need during times like that. Is we need to have people come around us and support us. And like you said, they don't even have to say anything.
No.
Just being there with us can help us process and get through our grief. Now, I'll be honest, I don't like funerals. I prefer what I've only experienced this once or twice, a celebration of life that's kind of more informal, where people share favorite memories of the person lost.
Yeah.
And usually it's a happy or a funny memory. And in that moment, we have a shared joy in telling the story, and other people receive joy in hearing the story.
That's right. And it allows the joy to actually kind of join in with the grief, and they're both existing equally together.
Yeah. Now, on another note, that we have to be careful here, because lots of times when someone passes away, you get lots of support initially. But I think it's often in the following in weeks and months, as grief isn't just over in one meetup, that maybe it's important to check in on people and spend time with them, as joy is relational, and just being there will help them continue to process their grief.
That's right. Yeah, so then I guess the next one, if we've gone through better relationships, we got it. It helps us endure hardships. Then it's just simply this one. and this is pretty important.
Yeah.
It's just healthier.
Yeah, and when I was researching for this, I found there was this is a big one.
Yeah.
Like there's lots of aspects to this, and we're going to go over a few of them here. Obviously, stress is a big thing in our culture today, and stress causes anxiety, and anxiety leads to lots of different things that are not good for your health. So having joy helps us be less anxious. So when we're fueled by fear instead of joy, it causes anxiety. And that's, like we said, very common in today's culture. Because we're always fixated on what bad things might happen when problems occur. Not things that did happen or are inevitable, but I know my mind tends to go to all the different possibilities of what can go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we add in the whole idea of the benefits of joy and then joy being relational, sometimes as I've learned to be better at bringing people into the things because again, it's the whole idea of what we said before. It's not that somehow stress doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, no.
But when you don't feel like you're alone in the stress, and that anxiety, even though it could still be there, it's just not to the same overwhelmingness than when joy is not.
Yeah, and I think there along with that is the idea that we get better at processing anxiety when we know that we have a support system.
Yeah.
And that regardless of the outcome of whatever thing you're going through, you got your people there to support you.
Yeah.
Another aspect of health is better immunity. Now, this one, I read about it and I went to check up on it. So, I put it into Google. What are the benefit, or does it really cause better immunity when you have joy? And I found articles from Harvard, the Mayo Clinic, and UCLA that show joy. And I'm going to put gratitude here as well, which is actually a practice of joy.
Yeah.
It actually improves our immune system. We're less likely to get sick.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Another one is improved mental health. And again, I think this relates back to the joy versus fear thing again.
Yeah.
Fear leads to anxiety and stress. And when you combine that with isolating, it tends to help make us have poor and I would say degrading mental health. It can become a downward spiral. The more we fixate on our problem, the more we withdraw from people, the more anxious we get about our problem. We don't have any support, and that just continues to make it worse for us.
Yeah, and it's actually a lot of this things that we've been reading along this too. They actually were talking in one of the books. I can't even remember which one now. Where there are people who are dealing with some pretty deep traumas, and in the midst of their practice as their psychological practice, they were finding that when they were kind of again going deep into some of these traumas, some people had to be hospitalized, and obviously because they would be re-triggered and all that. And of course, when they got together and they said, "Okay, we've got to find a better way. This is happening too much," they started taking more time to build joy, even in the practice. And when that happened, when they starting with sort of building more joy, they found that less people were having that same kind of trigger. Still having to work with the trauma, but not necessarily having to be hospitalized as a result. And therefore, it's contributed to the healing process there. And so that makes sense in that improved mental health. So we're not saying that do this and all your mental health issues are gone, but it can play a really important part in the healing of some of that, what's going on.
Yeah. And then I think this next one kind of makes sense based on the ones we just mentioned. If you have better immunity and you're less anxious and you have better mental health, then you're going to live longer.
Yeah.
And again, the same journals show that, it's not a guarantee, but generally, joy, when you live a joy-filled life, it leads to a longer life.
Yeah.
And this last one I think is extremely important, is that it makes us less prone or replaces addictions in our life. And I think what we've understood from the research is that when we don't have joy, we tend to look for a substitute for the joy.
Yeah, they call it pseudo joy.
Yeah, pseudo joy, and that's where addictions come in. So it could be food or sex or thrills or experiences or alcohol or drugs.
even though we say it's relational,
Yeah.
they do talk a lot. There can be that unhealthy connection to people in the sense that now we're, instead of in a relationship that is trying to, kind of grow in joy, it's more about a relationship that just, you're using those people to meet the needs, much like we would use whatever food to maybe meet some emotional need, as opposed to that person healthily coming together and things like that. And I think the big importance with this, because I know that it's really, you can be really going through a hard time and you think like, well, I feel like maybe I'm receiving more than I'm giving. I think we need to always talk about relationships. It's not necessarily 50-50.
Sure.
It really depends on the season you're in. You might need to receive more than you can give at a time. And sometimes, hopefully, as the season gets better, reverses.
Yeah.
That.
I think in the long run, it probably gets closer to 50-50.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's going to be ups and downs.
There's going to be ups and downs.
Sure. And I guess another issue with addictions is they tend to be downward spirals as well. There's this idea that, or actually it's research that shows that none of the addictions produce a long-lasting joy. And their effect is diminishing, meaning we need to increase the amount of whatever it is that we're addicted to and the frequency of it to get sort of the same high.
Right.
And then that is progressive. So it gets worse and worse and worse. Okay, the last one we're going to talk about today is, again, interesting to me. When we have joy-filled lives, we are more productive.
Yeah, we absolutely can have improved mood, a more stable mood. One of the things they talk about, it becomes easier to just be ourselves.
Yeah.
So we have better relationships. We're better at enduring hardships. And so with all that, if those things are a little better, obviously we can be just simply more productive.
And I think that's been my experience. I mean, we've all seen sort of, I think, or experienced the opposite of that, where one person who sort of sucks the joy out of the room, that can lead to a very toxic work environment.
Very hard,
yeah. And I think sometimes highly competitive environments can also be lethal to overall productivity. Sure. And again, those are the situations where sometimes narcissistic people will sort of take over and manipulate others to win whatever the cost. And that affects the relationships with the people they work for. And again, it removes the joy from that because others feel like they can never win. And again, just in the research I looked at, there are many books and studies that show team collaboration has proven to be a better working environment as the focus is on the team relationships that are more highly valued than just a short-term outcome.
Yeah, so really the main point in reviewing these benefits of the joy is really about showing that our brains are designed to operate on joy, operate healthily. Neuroscience scientist Alan Shore made this discovery in the late 1990s, and it was kind of the first time that we had technology to see what was really happening live, like at that moment in the brain in real time. And so then the research is, his research is the foundation for the book that Jim Wilder
we're studying this
and Michael Hendricks did, The Other Half of Church. And really actually it really shows a lot of places where neuroscience really kind of confirms this biblical view of
and
joy.
I really like that. I think I mentioned this in our live stream a couple of weeks ago, where a lot of Christians feel like science is opposed to the biblical worldview and to being a follower of Jesus, and we have to do our best to discredit it or put faith over science. And I think in what I really appreciate, there's one famous pastor that said, if science can actually prove anything, then that's the way God designed it or intended it. Yeah. And I think that's to see that the neuroscience research sort of supports or proves or confirms what we've known and practiced for a long time since Jesus. It just shows that one, I think we've said this before, that Jesus was brilliant, and that he knows us so well that the way he designed us to operate is a sort of the system that he created with the early church. And I thought that was quite fascinating to me.
It's quite good. Well, thank you once again for joining us. So today what we want to do is we want to maybe leave you more with a challenge to do over the next week and beyond, but for sure the next week. And we are going to do in the coming weeks sort of go into different practices to help build our capacity for joy. But we're just going to leave you with a simple one. This is what we want. We ask you to do this at least once, maybe even twice a day. Take a moment and think about something you are grateful for that has happened right in the moment in that day, and either do one or all or whatever. Write it down, put it in your phone, piece of paper, whatever helps you, or express it to maybe the person that you've done that you were feeling grateful for, and something they who they are, in time spent, and something they've done. And I just encourage you just to sort of do that and just start this simple practice, just to start building these things. And we're not going to say that you're going to experience all these benefits instantaneously. It does take time to build, and we just really want to start setting that up. So at some point every day, again, whether it's writing something down, putting it in your phone, or expressing it to someone and just being grateful. Simply something like this, like, thank you, Ron. I really enjoy when we have these conversations and we can talk like this. And it actually sometimes even really a big highlight of my week.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And it's sometimes just as simple as that.
Yeah. And thank you for watching.
Thank you for watching. We really do appreciate it. Yeah. Please feel free to like and subscribe. That really helps us keep doing some of the stuff. Put some comments. Even put some comments that speak to the grateful. Maybe something that's grateful that has happened as the day or the moment you're watching this video. That we're not looking for like extra. It doesn't have to be about us. Yeah. It can be something you had a great cup of coffee with a friend. Put that in there. Even just share some of your gratitudes right there in the comments. We'd love that.
Yes.
We'd love to see that we would be grateful if you took time to do that. Have a great week, and we will see you with more this journey of joy and these ingredients for a good community.